The year 1987 for the mob was monumental on many different levels. Nonetheless, today I'll be highlighting some of the hits that took place during that year. For the record, there were many murders committed in that year, and I won't be getting into every last one of them. This was a time when the streets, literally, were being littered with bodies. It was the mob sending a message. This is how we dealt with so-and-so. And the newspaper companies loved it, and of course splashed it all over their headlines, which naturally generated more sales. So let's take a closer look and a trip back to 1987. On January 14, 1987, Colombo member Salvatore Scarpa was killed. He was the brother of fellow Colombo member Greg Scarpa. His shooting took place at 1275 74th Street in Dyker Heights, Brooklyn, the location of a social club that supposedly he owned. In the club with him that day was around 10 younger guys who were playing pool. At some point, 5 guys entered the club. One of them was wearing a ski mask. The 4 who were unmasked were black. Several of the people inside were robbed of jewelry and cash. It's been reported that during the robbery, the guy with the ski mask began arguing with Scarpa and consequently shot him. It was also reported that on the way out, one of the guys yelled, "Remember Howard Beach," referencing the Howard Beach incident, which took place in December 1986, the year prior. Besides the robbery scenario, there are 2 additional theories, and both involve Greg Scarpa. One is that he set his brother up to be killed because Salvatore said that Greg was an informant following an argument, and the other being that Salvatore knew his brother Greg was an informant and was killed to prevent him from exposing that fact. In a twist, the person in the ski mask was said to be Philip Paradiso, which makes sense that the only person wearing a mask was white, and he happens to be the brother of Gambino Consigliere, Mickey Boy Paradiso. Philip Paradiso began cooperating with law enforcement the year before, so at the time of the shooting, he, like Greg Scarpa, was an FBI informant. Give me your thoughts in the comments as to what you believe the reason for Salvatore Scarpa's murder. My opinion is his brother had him killed. On March 20th, 1987, parking violations officer George Aronwald was shot inside Young's Chinese Laundry at 3317 Crescent Street in Long Island City. Aronwald was at the counter when a man appeared at the door and shot him 3 times in the head and chest. The shooter then jumped into a blue Monte Carlo and sped away. This murder was ordered by Carmine Persico, but George Aronwald was not the intended target. His son William, a federal prosecutor, was. Aronwald Sr. was killed that day by a 2-brother hit team who bungled the hit. On May 18, 1987, Frankie Burke, the son of Jimmy Burke, was found shot and killed in front of 1043 Liberty Avenue in Brooklyn. I believe at the time it was a place called Tito's Lounge. Tito Ortiz was arrested for the murder. Nevertheless, on September 10, 1987, 3 guys wearing masks walked into father and son barbershop at 9:45 a.m. and fired 10 shots into the owner, Vito Scaglione, while he sat in a barber's chair reading the newspaper. It's a fact that this murder was in retaliation for Frankie Burke's murder. Apparently, Ortiz, Scaglione, and Burke all knew and did business together, and drugs were involved. On June 12, 1987, Vincent and Enrico Carini were both found shot to death and placed in the backseat of 2 separate cars parked in Brooklyn. The brothers were the one who bungled the Aronwald hit. Following the Carini murders, Joe Waverly, who had them murdered, gave Frankie Smith, a close friend to the Kini Brothers, the name of the person involved in their murders, Carmine Variali. On August 8, 1987, Geneves associate Irwin Schiff was killed at 75th Street and 2nd Avenue in New York City at my family's restaurant, Bravo Sergio. Irwin had just finished dinner with a date and ordered dessert when the shooter entered the restaurant through a service door and shot him twice in the head and left by the same door. Irwin's murder was ordered by the West Side, the Geneves family, specifically Bobby Manna, the family's consigliere. The murder was in regard to a $20 million loan for the construction of the Jacobs Javits Center in New York. The shooter, Richard DeCiccio, seen here with Bobby Manna, would be convicted with Manna for that murder, as well as the conspiracy to kill both John and Jean Gotti, among other crimes. At 4:22 p.m. on September 3, 1987, Variali and Frank Santora were both shot to death in front of 1508 Bath Avenue in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. The shooter, Frankie Smith, according to witnesses, then jumped into a getaway car Smith eventually began cooperating, and on January 6, 2003, he signed the cooperation agreement and pled guilty to Variali and Santora's murder. Variali was reported to be a Colombo member, and Santora was the cousin of Louis Eppolito, one of Gaspipe's crooked cops. On September 5, 1987, Gambino associate Santo Cora was shot 6 times at 2:10 a.m. at 74th Street and 20th Avenue, also in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. On him was a .25 automatic. Coratola was originally from Sicily and in 1964 convicted of sodomy, and at the time of his death, he was wanted for drug charges. On September 17, 1987, Colombo member Joseph Joe Brewster Di Domenico was found shot to death in the back seat of his Buick. Joe Brewster was extremely close to Greg Scarpa, as they were both in the same crew, but their relationship soured after Scarpa learned Joe Brewster was going on scores with the Lucchese's bypass crew. Supposedly, Joe Brewster refused to do a piece of work, a murder, that Scarpa asked him to commit. In addition, Joe Brewster became a born-again Christian, which caused the Colombo family concern. When Carmine Persico was asked permission to kill Joe Brewster, he allegedly said, "If he found God, it's time for him to join God." Let me quickly mention the Super Thanks icon, which can be found underneath this video by clicking on the 3-dot drop-down, put there for anyone who'd like to show appreciation for videos like this. And thank you. On October 8, 1987, at 4:15 p.m., John Otto Heidel was shot 6 times at East 35th Street and Avenue T in Brooklyn. He was changing his tire, and the police found the .38 automatic on him. Heidel was a safecracker and a member of the bypass crew. Gaspipe's 2 crooked cops gave him information that Heidel was cooperating, and Gaspipe ordered his murder. On November 2, 1987, between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., Gambino associate Michael DeBatt was killed at 6205 18th Avenue in Brooklyn in Tally's Restaurant and Lounge, where he worked. He was found behind the bar, shot several times. His jewelry and cash from the register was missing in an attempt to make it look like a staged robbery. It was later reported that Gambino member Huck Carbonaro was the shooter of DeBatt. DeBatt developed a bad drug habit and was viewed as a liability. In regard to all these murders we discussed, aside from the fact that they were all mob hits, they share a common denominator with the outcomes. Murders, especially ones committed by the mob, quickly catch the attention of the government and the FBI, which starts the legal domino effect, where the FBI goes into investigative mode, pulling all resources, and come down on the families and those responsible. This is the reason why today there are hardly any murders committed. But for those who lost their lives in 1987, they unfortunately did so in one of the most deadliest years in mob history.